Ever since the first podcast was launched in 2003, podcasting has largely stayed true to its original mission of being completely free and open, so no one owns it. Instead of tech giants owning the relationship between creators and their fans, as has been the case with most other types of online content, podcasters have connected to their fans directly via open and decentralized RSS feeds. This decentralized setup has allowed podcasting to remain mostly free from the deplatforming, demonetization, algorithmic throttling, and other problems that have become pervasive on big tech platforms. But in recent years, the tide has started to change. As podcasting has grown in popularity, researchers and legacy media outlets have demanded that top-down censorship systems be applied to podcasting. As a result, new systems that subject podcasters to the censorship creators have faced on other platforms have started to spring up. One of the metrics that has emerged in this rush to crack down on speech in podcasting is AI-powered, brand safety analysis. This analysis involves flagging so-called high-risk speech within podcasts and determining podcasts' suitability for advertising. While this type of analysis has existed for several years, it's now starting to go mainstream. Recently, Sounder, a company that uses AI-powered tech to create brand safety solutions for audio publishers, agencies, and advertisers, NewsGuard, a company that creates trust ratings for various types of content, and Barometer, a company that uses AI-powered insights to optimize digital audio ads and enforce brand safety standards at scale, all launched new brand safety tools for podcasting. These companies have direct partnerships with major podcast and audio advertising companies, and their new tools are now being used by some of the largest advertisers in the podcasting space to ensure that ads only run against brand-safe content. Sounder's new tool is called the Audio Insights Dashboard and lets advertisers, explore podcast brand suitability. The AI-powered dashboard flags various types of speech in podcasts, such as firearms-related content, hate speech, debated sensitive social issues, and profanity. It also assigns a low, medium, or high-risk rating to podcasts. iHeartMedia, the largest podcast publisher in the world. Odyssey, one of the U.S.'s biggest podcast platforms. Digital Ad Exchange, an audio advertising platform that reaches over 100 million listeners per month. AudioHook, the leading demand-side platform for audio advertising, are just some of the large podcasting companies that use Sounder to help their advertisers target brand-safe content. NewsGuard has launched 2 new brand safety products that target podcasting. One of these products is called Podcast Credibility Ratings. These ratings give podcasts a trust score ranging from 0 to 10. According to NewsGuard, 3 major podcast streaming platforms are already using these ratings. Some of NewsGuard's suggested use cases for these podcast credibility ratings include directing ad spend towards trustworthy podcasts, avoiding advertising on podcasts that regularly convey false information, avoiding advertising on, heavily biased or politically slanted news shows, moderating content on podcast streaming platforms, and promoting, highly trustworthy news and information podcasts in user searches and curated sections on podcast streaming platforms. NewsGuard's second brand safety product for podcasting was launched in collaboration with Barometer and is an AI-powered podcast scanning tool that can, detect potential misinformation at the episode level in seconds. It also lets users create risk profiles for podcasts, which are based on various brand safety metrics. Barometer has partnerships with several major podcasting companies, including AudioHook, Cats Digital, a podcast hosting and monetization company that reaches 90% of Americans in the streaming audio space, and Oxford Road, the leading independent advertising agency for audio. The press release for NewsGuard and Barometer's tool suggests that it can be used to monitor podcast media buys for, potential misinformation narratives, leverage Barometer's partnerships to, enforce brand integrity standards, inform economic and brand value-based decisions, such as, vetting a podcast show before including it in a brand's advertising strategy, or, pausing a media buy for further examination. For podcasters, the proliferation of these brand safety tools is likely to create a YouTube-like environment where those who talk about topics that are deemed to be unsafe will find it increasingly difficult to monetize their podcasts. And because podcasting is no longer as open as it used to be, These scores are also likely to be used for more direct censorship in the future. Apple Podcasts, an app that supports open RSS feeds and allows listeners to subscribe to podcasts directly without relying on an intermediary that can suppress or censor podcasts, was the most popular podcast player app for many years. And for most of the app's existence, Apple took a hands-off approach and rarely moderated the podcast directory within the app. However, over the last few years, Apple has begun censoring some of the podcasts in this directory. Since 2017, Apple has also been losing market share to Spotify, which hosts and streams content from within its own walled garden. According to podcast analytics company Podtrac, 33.7% of Americans now listen to podcasts on Spotify, compared with 27.6% on Apple Podcasts. Podtrac stats also reveal that since September 2017, Apple Podcasts' market share has declined by 9%, while Spotify's has increased by 21%. Since Spotify doesn't let listeners subscribe to podcast RSS feeds directly, it has the capability to use AI-powered brand safety scores to decide whether the podcasts within its walled garden get amplified, suppressed, or deleted. And Spotify already owns a company that would allow it to integrate these brand safety scores into its platform. Kinzen, which Spotify acquired last year, uses machine learning models to flag, quote, harmful language, claims, narratives, and policy violations in audio content. Not only does Spotify have direct access to the technology that makes this AI-powered censorship possible, but it has also demonstrated that it's willing to police speech in podcasts. Despite only starting its podcast push in 2017, Spotify has already censored more than 20,000 podcasts, including some episodes of the world's most popular podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience. Although podcasting apps that allow listeners to subscribe to podcasts directly via RSS do provide respite from podcast censorship, their market share is dwindling, and closed censorship-enabling systems are capturing the podcasting market at an accelerated pace. Podcasting has put up a valiant fight and managed to resist legacy media demands for censorship for most of its two-decade existence. But the beginning of the end has started. The rise of closed platforms like Spotify has eroded the openness of podcasting. And now, the AI-powered censors are here to accelerate the decline. Thank you for watching. If you support free speech, freedom from surveillance, and digital civil liberties, join Reclaim the Net. Become a supporter by going to reclaimthenet.org and signing up.